The biggest reason Saints fans should be excited for 2026, off the bench, Jacob Hester, Nicholas joining the show, Matt Flynn. The biggest reason the Saints should be excited for 2026 is the amount of content that I'm going to be pumping out. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen? So let's go ahead and get into the show. We'll let them kick things off. I'll react along the way. Here we go.
How was your vacation, sir?
It was good. I went to London. Everyone knows that. I went to London about 2 months ago, first week of May. I mean, no one really would notice because I was still pumping out 2 videos a day even while I was in London. How the hell do I do what I do?
It was good. It was good. Glad to be back. Ready for training camp. Final countdown here. It's today, 15 days away. Camp's coming. I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see what this team's going to be. First time in a very long time that I think there's genuine excitement going into a season.
Yes.
We had like the fake excitement, I think, with the beginning of the Derek Carr era. And then you remembered, that was what it was. But I think this time it
was the Derek Carr era.
Yeah.
Hey, what happened? What are you talking about?
I think this time is real. I think there's real excitement this time.
Well, it has what every fan base wants. What every fan base wants is just a vision, a plan, a track. And we feel like we're on the track. It feels like this isn't a 1 year, 2 year stopgap thing. It's not a bridge quarterback thing. It's not, it's okay. We got something long term here. I mean, even Kellen Moore. Let's pretend Mike McCarthy was the head coach, okay? If Mike McCarthy was the head coach, what? He's got 5 years max if everything goes right? Kellen Moore, and it sounds crazy, Kellen Moore, he could have 30 years in him. Who knows? Like, there's no telling what the track of that is. The young players we have on the roster is mostly rookies and second-year players. So how long is this chapter going to exist? There is a world where this chapter this is the next decade of the New Orleans Saints. This is the next, somewhere between 5 to 10 years. Okay, I'm on board for that. And if you're looking at Tyler Shough, Travis Etienne, Chris Olave, Jordyn Tyson, Christian Miller, Vernon Broughton, Quincy Riley, Kool McKinstry, Jonas Sanker, Bryce Lance, Oscar Delp, Talise Fuaga, Kelvin Banks, you're looking at Danny Stutzman. All those guys I just listed are in their first couple of years in the NFL. All those guys I just listed are year 1, 2, or 3. That's a lot of the team. And that's not even factoring in Barry and Brown and some of these other guys that, that may have other roles like kick returner and things like that. But this is a team with a ton of runway to get excited about. So it's not just a 1 or 2 year thing.
So we were looking at the schedule, and one of the things, at least for me, I don't want to speak for Matt, that I would always look at whenever we got our schedule was, okay, which divisions are we going to play? Like, we know we're playing our division, but what are we going to get in the NFC and the AFC? And the Saints are going to have the North, the AFC, NFC North. And we were taking a look at, maybe some of the different games. And for me, like, the NFC North is what it is. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it. Every team had a winning record. It's going to be very tough for the Saints. Now, the AFC North, on the other side of it, a lot of unknown. New coaches everywhere but Cincinnati. So when you take a look at that for this Saints team, I almost feel like if you split with the NFC North, that could be you getting to 9 wins if you did just that, because I think you're going to have some success against the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that sets up, too, is the schedule. Look, I think one of the big differences between this team and previous editions of the team is when you look at the schedule this year, like, I think the way it starts out is really tough. Detroit and then Baltimore, like, very, very likely, very possible that they end up 0-2 to start. I think this team 2 years ago, man, you remember how they started that season? They were so strong. They came out the gates, the first 2 games. It was unbelievable. Yeah. They were scoring points at a rate where you had to compare them to the 2007 Patriots to find like a comp. And that was like the best offense of all time, how they started that season. And then they lose a couple games and they fall apart, and they just weren't mentally tough.
Well, then they got injured. I mean, I'll never forget the Eagles game. I remember we were sitting in the Dome, the Eagles game. And I mean, I can remember like it was yesterday. We were sitting there, and before the game, in the seats, I think I made a Dennis Allen Coach of the Year bet, a Saints NFC championship bet, because my thought was if they beat Philly and they go 3-0, these numbers are going to get cut in half. Like, these numbers are going to be cut in half. There's going to be a whole different ball game, and Eric McCoy gets hurt. That game goes absolutely sideways, and we really still should have won the game. And if it wasn't for the Dallas Goedert, broken coverage situation and all of that, if it wasn't for that, the Saints win that game. If it wasn't for, I mean, it's just so bad. But, and what happens then? And that was the Super Bowl champions. That was a Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. That wasn't a pushover team. So you could have gone 3-0, dog walking Dallas, dog walking Cleveland, and then you beat Philly. I mean, who knows? And then of course the injuries happen, and then it's all from there. When McCoy got hurt, it was never really the same. Then eventually Carr gets hurt and whatever, but yeah, I mean, it was just what an insane couple of games there.
And it was here we go again attitude, and they were kind of just waiting the whole time for things to fall apart. I think this team's built in a way where they can endure an 0-2 start. And I think they're
100%.
young and dumb in all the right ways to where they can go through that, maintain positivity, and find their way back. So I think the build of the team's important. The NFC North definitely tough.
I mean, young, dumb, and full of optimism. That's the old saying. What did y'all think I was going to say?
AFC is going to be determined by a lot of factors. I mean, you're playing the Bengals in November. I mean, is Burrow going to be on the field at that point? Like, that's a question every year for them. That could be a really tough game, or it could be, a gimme depending on how that kind of sets up. So, there's a lot of factors there. But the schedule overall, like you look at it, the average strength of opponent, and this is always a BS stat because it changes every year from beginning of the season to the end. But like, I don't think it's a murderer's row or anything. I just think the way some of these things are set up are a little bit tough. Like there's some longer road trips in the back half.
Real quick, people always say this time of year when people are like, there's no such thing as an easy schedule in the NFL. There is. Relative to the other schedules, there is an easiest and hardest. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, any team can beat any team, but if you look at every single schedule and you judge every schedule relative to each other, there's absolutely an easiest, easier, hardest, harder. There absolutely is a range of schedules.
I think the start's tough. It's weird. You play 2 games and then you're 3 at home, and then you're in New York, and then straight from New York you're going to Paris. Like that could end up being a tough swing where maybe you aren't looking at the Giants and Steelers on paper, and then coming back you got the bye, and then I think the Browns after that. That doesn't look like a tough stretch, but like that New York to Paris swing could be weird for them too. So I think this team has the mental
away games too right after that.
Yeah, I think this team has like the mental fortitude to get through some tough stuff and figure it out, especially in the back half. I think it kind of opens up a little bit if you just look at opponents. But I think it's I mean, there's going to be some challenges there for sure with the Norths, but if they can find their way through it, I think they'll be okay.
Yep.
I'm not really worried about. I mean, there are some games that are swing games, like the Steelers game for sure. The Browns game should be a win, but the tougher games on the schedule, like I was not that concerned about. I'm concerned about, the 7 games after Detroit and Baltimore. I'm concerned about the 5 games at the end. So really, I've kind of chunked this schedule into 12 games. The other games, you want to win them, but I'm not really that concerned about Green Bay, Chicago, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Detroit. I'm more, give me the 12 games. Like I want to know what happens in those 12 games, and the coin flip games especially. I want to know what happens against Pittsburgh and Minnesota and the Giants and the Raiders and the NFC South games. That's where this season will be made or lost. If you told me right now we lose to Baltimore, Detroit, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and Chicago, that wouldn't tell me nothing about the season. Now, if you told me we beat them all, okay, that tells me something. But if you tell me we lose to all of them, doesn't matter. We can still be a 9-win team, 10-win team, 11-win. It doesn't matter. We can still be a playoff team. We can still be a really good team. We can still take a step in the right direction. Now, if you told me we lost to the Raiders, if you told me we lost to Minnesota, or if we lose the Pittsburgh game, now you're telling me, now I'm starting to see the picture. Now I'm starting to see, okay, we lost the Monday night game to Atlanta. Okay, I see what kind of season this is going to be. That game against Minnesota will tell me more than the other 5 games combined. I'll tell you that right now. So focus on the 7, and then we'll reassess, and then focus on the 5 at the end. That is where this season will be made.
Young and dumb in all the right ways. I like that. That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
don't put that on your Tinder profile. Good God Almighty! I mean, you put that. I mean that's got Bumble Plus written all over it.
Not like the song. They're not broke.
yeah, no doubt.
Khaled.
Okay, so I was going to ask a question, but you got me It piqued my interest right there with what you're talking about.
With the young and dumb, what's going on here? We all need to take a breath. Let's just take a pause. Let's just get a glass of water, everybody. Let's everybody reset. Okay, take a cold shower. I mean, let's just, it's a family show.
So they got the mental. You think they got the mental fortitude
Yes.
to withstand a tough part of the schedule, withstand early losses. Why do you think that?
I mean, we saw it last year. Like they started out one win and found their way back. But
Well, I'll answer first. It is my show. This team is built on the culture of being able to bounce back. Every single player, Jordyn Tyson, Tyler Shough, even Kellen Moore, they're all built from the same cloth of they had a setback, something went awry in their career or life, they figured things out, and now they're ready to roll. And they have kind of this never say die, this kind of je ne sais quoi about them where they just, they're not phased. They're not phased by hardship. They're not phased by tough times or whatever. Kellen talks about it all the time. He says, I don't care about the interception. I care about the next drive. And that is the truth. Look at Spencer Rattler's career. Spencer Rattler's gone through a ton of hardship. Whether it was Oklahoma or South Carolina or the draft or whatever else. That is the makeup of this team. That is not an accident. Okay, so they are uniquely built to deal with loss and tough times. We saw that last year, like Nick's about to say. This team could have given up 10 weeks in a row. They could have given up at any point, and they decided to do the opposite, and they dug in, and they played harder, and they were more excited at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year, and they had no reason to. You go to the previous season, whenever players were basically quitting on the team, and they were infighting and toxic cliques, and the coaches were being fired and this and that, and it was a nightmare. This team last year, if you would have told them, hey guys, good news, we're playing another game in week 18 and week 19 and week 20 and week 21, they would have said, fine, we'll stick around and play. They just loved playing.
In the locker room, look, this is it's a very kumbaya locker room, like more so than any I've ever seen in my life last year. I've been covering the league since 2010, and there's guys sitting around singing 2000s R&B songs like Mario, and just in the back corner of the locker room.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah, like just stuff like that, man. Like they just felt more together than I've ever seen a team in bad times too. Which you can fake that stuff. I think culture is like the biggest lie in sports, and you guys can correct me on that. But I think every team that's good has good culture, and every team that's bad, not every team, but most teams that are bad have bad culture. I think there's assholes that are great teammates when a team's good, and as soon as things turn bad, they become the most toxic people in the world. Yeah. So I think winning hides a lot of stuff. And I think you actually saw good culture poking through at a time where this team was really bad, and they were still together, still having fun. There wasn't finger pointing. For someone in my position, there isn't the 12:30 a.m. text from a grumpy player on Sunday night after a loss, like trying to air people out and stuff like that. Just none of that was happening. So I think that they're positive enough right now. And I think a lot of that comes from Kellen Moore. I think a lot of times teams are built in the image of the coach, and like he's a very positive, happy-go-lucky type of person. And I think the team kind of took on his personality. Now
this is Kellen was beginning of his Saints tenure. People were upset that he wasn't 50 years old, 300 pounds with a beard and chewing tobacco running down his face, cursing and screaming and throwing stuff. But this is a product of Kellen's even-keeled temperament, where he doesn't get that rattled. He doesn't get that rattled about anything. And he's just kind of a cool, calm, and collected kind of guy. And that does lend itself to the team not being rattled. His lack of volatility is a huge bonus in these situations where he's just kind of, I'll go back to blackjack. If you're playing blackjack, and I'm sure we've all been at the table with a whole bunch of different kind of people, there are some blackjack players that are living and dying with every single hand. And they are volatile. They're cussing out the dealer. They're cussing out the pit boss. They're cussing out, the other people playing at the table. Oh, you did this wrong. Oh, you're not playing right. You cost me money, whatever. We've all been there. It's the worst people to play with. And they're playing just on raw emotion. They're getting tilted. They're hitting when they should be staying. They're doubling to try and make their money back. They're splitting for no reason. they're just pressing and pressing and pressing. And then there's other players who they're just playing the book. They're just playing by, just the numbers. And they're just saying their emotion is completely eliminated. It's just, well, okay, the numbers say I should hit here. I hit. Oop, I lost. Well, it's the numbers. Oh, numbers say I should stay here. I stay. I lose. Okay, on to the next one. Because they know, like, it's all just going to work out. They trust their numbers. They trust their process. They're playing basic strategy, and there's no reason to get mad. It's just basic strategy. It's just the numbers. It's just, like it's all going to average itself out. And that's Kellen. Kellen is just that. It's going to average itself out. Trust the process. Trust the system. Trust my numbers. Hard work. And if we just do our thing long enough, we'll win in the end. And so Kellen's removed all that, just the highly volatility, highly emotional side of things, and I think it's permeated through the players.
How much mileage do you get out of that? That's debatable. Obviously, I think it even changes this year because there's some level of expectation of at least a march towards success, if not success itself. But I just think we saw things last year that felt unfakeable, that make me believe that they could drop to and kind of be in there. And like I said, we've been around teams that have lost a couple games in a row when they had every reason to believe, and it just quickly fell apart.
Oh, yeah.
Now, one of the other things that we were talking about with this team, like this year compared to the team you're talking about last year, if we're looking offensively, I think they're better at receiver, tight end, offensive line, quarterback, and running back.
Yeah. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about the actual roster. The actual roster, it is wild. Now, I've said this a million times, but it is wild how different this team is from a year ago. And Jacob is 100% correct. You can look at every position group and be like, they're better. You could even say linebacker. Now, hard to factor it in, but there are some pros and cons to DeMario versus Caden Ellis. Caden makes you a better blitzing team. He's a little more athletic, younger, whatever. DeMario, obviously, way smarter or way more experienced pre-snap as far as getting everyone aligned. He's a locker room leader, culture guy off the field. Some of that stuff, 100%. But you can make the argument that Caden will make them better post-snap, make them better for what Staley wants to do. We'll see how that plays out. But it's hard to find a group that's worse. Defensive line, better. Just the addition of Vernon Broughton and Kristen Miller. Just two guys, second-round pick, third-round pick. In the secondary, you could say the same. It depends on how you feel about Sanker versus Alante and, Kool-Aid and Quincy in another year in the system. You could argue better, but, edge, better. Chase Young for a full year. Tyree Wilson getting involved. Okay. Offensive line, way better. Running back, better. Wide receivers, better. Tight end room, better, deeper. It's just a better team. Roster-wise, you Tyler Shough for a full season. Tyler Shough in his second year. Quarterback's better. So across the board, this team should be much better. Now, the question is how much better. We know how bad they were last year at certain times, or certain things like running the ball, red zone offense, early, all that stuff. We know the numbers. So if they're going to be better, how much better? If they were 27th last year across the board offensively, what is the level now of the tide that's going to rise up? Is it going to go from 27th to 20th, 27th to 15th, 27th to 10? How high is that progression going to go? That's the gamble. The gamble is, or I guess the question is, what is the level of increase that we think we will see this year? And then you go from there. And you can do that across the board. If the Saints were the 31st worst rushing offense, what is it going to be elevated to now? Will it be elevated to a top 20, top 15, and go from there? Special teams. We were 31st last year. Okay, what's it going to be now? Is it going to be top 10? Is it going to be top 15? Offensive line. Go across the board. And then if you see that rising tide lifting all the ships, then that's how you all of a sudden say, damn, this team might be a 10, 11, 12 win team. That's how you get there. Now, if you think it's smaller and you think, okay, we're going from 27 to 22, we're going to, okay, we're here, then yeah, you're probably still a 7, 8, 9 win team and you're probably a year away from being a year away. But that range of possibility, that's why it's so big. That's why it's so, when you look at the standard deviation for this team, That's why it's so large, is that we understand the direction that it's going. We just don't understand how much it's going to go in that direction and how quick.
Truly believe that. They've added pieces to every one of those rooms. Now, the quarterback room they've added, but it's more about the development another year for Tyler Shough after those 8 games. But I don't really know how you could argue against it. I mean, now defensively, it's a little bit of a different subject. I mean, you lost some DBs that you didn't really replace, and Caden Ellis is a different player than Demario Davis.
Yeah.
But offensively, they feel like they are going to be better on every single level.
And I just kind of hinted at this, but don't forget, they were bad on offense last year. They were good on defense. So if they're good on offense this year, and like Jacob's saying, they should be because of all the improvements, that's where they needed to get better. It's not like they're taking a good offense and getting incrementally better. They're taking a horrible offense. Horrible. So if you have a horrible offense that is supposed to be good now, that is the biggest jump you could take. The biggest jump you could take wouldn't be defensively, because the defense was good last year. They were like, whatever it was, 13th in DVOA, a bunch of different metrics, but they were somewhere in the neighborhood of a top 15 defense, somewhere in there if you rounded down. So they were good. They don't need to make the jump defensively. They just kind of have to have the status quo defensively. If they're the same defensively this year as they were last year, that's really good. If they're the exact same, they're above average at the least defensively. So the fact that they made this huge jump offensively is what they needed to do.
Totally agree on that. Like, there's no way that the offense can't be better. You had a top 10 receiver, you had 2 tight ends, you had David Edwards to the mix. Fuaga and Banks got another year of seasoning and growth, especially Banks getting the year 2.
Yeah.
Typically, you see people get better in that area. Shough should be better. I think Etienne makes a huge difference at running back. The thing on offense is just, Tyler got sacked 31 times and only played in 9 games. Like, that number has to change.
Yeah. He's got to be better. His pressure to sack number, we covered this like last week or within the last couple of weeks. His pressure to sack numbers were terrible. That a lot of it's on him. But he's a rookie. His clock's messed up. We understand that. It just has to improve. It's just something that he's got to be better at. And if he is better at, cool. But yeah, the sack number and all that was bad. He didn't throw the ball away really at all. So that's good. Cool. But the pressure to sack, some of those numbers have to shift a little bit
drastically. But the offensive line, I think, helps with that. Yep. Red zone's got to be way better. That was something that was terrible. And then those first drives, I don't know what the answer is there. That was the weirdest thing. That
was nuts.
Really ever. Like that they just couldn't score points. I think with Shough starting to average 1.11 points per opening drive, like that's got to change too. But I think all those things kind of take care of themselves. I think red zone gets better with better weapons. He was good in the red zone at Louisville, so I don't think that's like a fatal flaw in him. The defense, I don't know. I've been looking at this team for like in a parked position for so long that I think I've talked myself into believing that the defense is going to be better and good, which is kind of what you start out and you just kind of, I don't know, things go away over time. We're about to find out.
I think you can drop it. I think you can drop the expectation of the defense and still be fine. You can drop some of that. Like the offense, I think you probably need to stay a little higher just in your like off-season evaluations as you are looking at the team. I think offensively, it's okay to boost up because of this jump we expect them to take. Defensively, like I said, even if you drop the level of play and the expectations and you kind of overcompensate for the loss of DeMario and Alante, and you round down a little bit and say, okay, this is going to take a step back. They're not going to be top 12. They'll be closer to 18. Even if you do that, and that's really putting the governor on, that's really kind of lessening what you expect from the defense, the team still should be really good. So, people tell me all the time, like, well, the secondary sucks or whatever, like they're not going to be good. That's kind of okay. It's not okay if they're 32, but it's kind of okay if you have doubts about the secondary or if you have doubts about, the pass rush or something. Like if the doubts are there and it lessens a little bit of the expectations defensively, even though it's never good to go backwards, it's never good to be worse or whatever, but given the way that the Saints are building this team and the way they're entering the season and what they did last year, that is kind of like, if you are going to take a step back a little bit, it's okay to take a step back there because of how much they overperformed last year. It would be horrible if they took a step back on the offensive line because of how bad the offense was last year. It would be horrible if they took a step back in the running game because of how bad they were last year running the ball. It would be horrible if they took a step back in the red zone because they were terrible in the red zone. There's no room for error on the offense. There is room for error defensively. Not saying you want that to happen or that it's going to happen, but if it did have to happen, if our worst nightmares came true defensively, and the DeMario loss was huge, the Alante loss was huge, the cornerbacks weren't ready, Cam Jordan takes a step back, Chase, whatever, I think the team can survive that. I think the team can still be good. They can't be good if they take a step back offensively. They cannot be good if the running game is as bad as last year. They can't be good if the offensive line is as bad as last year. They can't be good if any of those other numbers we talked about mimic last year.
I think there's reasons to worry and there's reasons not to. I just, man, it's just such a huge question in the secondary. Like, we don't know anything about Snecker in the slot.
Yeah.
This weekend, I went back over and looked at, he had 368 snaps, I think, at Virginia in the slot. And I went through and I watched all of them, and there's some stuff to feel good about and there's some stuff to feel bad about. So I think that's going to determine a lot on the team. I've kind of talked myself into a position where I think adding Ellis gives you things, and maybe it ends up being a wash this year, but that might be a stupid point of view because DeMario is such a good player.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the offense.
That's kind of what I was talking about too. It's I could see it both ways. It might be just a net wash. It might be a slight net negative this year, but a net positive moving forward. You put it in the algorithm, it probably spits out about equal.
This is going to be way better. And if they're winning 9 games, if they're taking care of the NFC North, it's going to be because they're scoring 30 points a game in positions like that. So the defense just has to be okay. Staley has to coach at the level he did last year. You got way more out of him than he should have. And
I think that's another thing too. And I know me and Nick kind of talked about this, but there are 11 players on the defense, but you could say the most important thing on the defense is the system. And that might be the ultimate Band-Aid, is just the fact that Staley can get the most out of these players. He proved it last year. Career high in tackles, DeMario Davis. Cam Jordan back to 10-plus sacks. Chase Young, best year of his career. Got the most out of Jonas Sanker, Quincy Riley in their rookie year. Got a ton out of Danny Stutzman. Got Kool-Aid playing well. Kool-Aid was probably ended up as a top 25 cornerback last year. So there is something there with, it's going to be okay because of Staley in this system. He's proven he can get the most out of these guys, and a lot of them are coming back. Last year should have been the hardest year for Jonas Sanker and Quincy Riley because it's their rookie year in a very difficult to learn system. So another year, same guy, more players. Now you're getting Tyree Wilson and Kristen Miller and TJ Hall and Vernon Broughton and some of these other guys. He's Caden Ellis, whatever. You do kind of have to factor in, maybe Staley can just make it work. And maybe he proved he can. It's not even like I'm having a crazy hypothesis. He proved he can make it work with these guys.
Yeah, but I think the offense is absolutely level up. And look, Bill Barnwell from ESPN, he's not a Saints homer. He hates the Saints. He ranked them in the top 10 offensive weapons in the NFL. So a guy that's been down on this team during the Breeze era, it feels like they got good weapons right now. So yeah, I think they're in a spot to get better on offense.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. What is the reason you're excited for the Saints in 2026? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.